Sorry about that. Let's go ahead and get started. Who is the Idea Fund? The Idea Fund has been around since 2009. We are currently on our 15th round. Our first round happened in 2009. The Idea Fund is a program that provides grants to individual artists or collectives in the greater Houston area. Our grants support an innovative, experimental, public-facing visual arts projects that expand our understanding of how art exists in the world, addresses our community needs, or exemplifies new ways of working in, for, and with community. So the Idea Fund is comprised of diverse works, Aurora Picture Show, and Project Row Houses, and we are funded by the Andy Warhol Foundation. And so a little bit of an overview of the work that the Idea Fund has done so far. We have supported a total of 146 projects involving over 493 artists/artist collectives. And in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, we then supported 65 artists in need as a part of round 13 for emergency relief grants. And overall, we support creative communities within the greater Houston metropolitan area and the 9 surrounding counties. Okay, so here is a timeline for you all. Our application is currently open. It first launched on August 31st of this year. It is due on November 15th. We will have our jury review in December. Award notifications will go out in January of next year. And then those grantees will have an awards reception in February of next year. And we will be collecting final reports in December of 2022. We did have 2 previous info sessions. Today is our final live info session. But if you want to revisit this presentation, or if you have a friend that couldn't make it today or to the other 2 previous ones, they are recorded and you can access them through the Idea Fund website. So who can apply? We support individual artists, curators, collectives, or collaboratives. If you are applying as a group, the main leader of the collaborative should be in one of the main counties, which are, or one of the 9 counties, which are Austin, Brazoria, Chambers, Fort Bend, Galveston, Harris, Liberty, Montgomery, or Waller. All the past TIF project grant and TIF emergency relief grant recipients are also eligible to apply for round 15. So if you've received a grant before, that does not affect your eligibility. While anyone can apply, round 15 funded proposals will take innovative approaches to the urgent questions of our moment and create lasting impacts on its intended communities. So what projects are ineligible? Projects proposed by a 501c3 nonprofit organization, projects in which the lead artist lives outside of the 9 eligible greater Houston area counties, projects in which all artists reside outside of the 9 eligible counties, projects that do not have a public component. For example, that could be projects that do not involve the public in any of the processes, production, presentation, programming, and etc. And projects that do not exemplify innovative practices in contemporary art. So what types of projects will be funded? We are looking for works based in visual art, works that are innovative and have a strong community component. Examples of visual arts practices could be painting, drawing, sculpture, social practice, performance, film, video, photography, And as you can see here on the slide, the list goes on. But I do want to stress that this is not a limited list of what is possible. We are open to experimental practices and really open to what each of these categories means. So now I will get into examples of past projects. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for 1 second. Okay, so if you go to our website, which is the ideafund.org, and you hover over this kind of top blue bar, you can hover over grant recipients and see all of our past rounds. When you click on any of them, it will then take you to, so if I click on round 11, it takes me to a list of projects that were accepted for round 11, and then you can click on any of these to learn more. And so right now I'm going to talk about Rising Tide projects. The Rising Tide was done by Jessica Nincy and Dan Schmall. They are both based in Galveston. And this is round 11, so this happened in 2019. And their project was an artist-run space that really explored what the term gallery even means, right? So it was a space for workshops. It was used as a community space, and also responds to architectural issues associated with Galveston's environmental future. So I'm going to go to their Instagram page as well, just so we can kind of get a visual. And so you can see here in this project, I think one of the details that we mentioned the most is that you can see how the walls are elevated because they were responding to the flooding within Galveston. So yeah, they're working on re-envisioning what gallery means. That's one of the projects. Okay. And the second project I would like to show you was a part of round 14, which was done in 2021. We are currently in 2021. So Two Dykes and a Nice. This is a project by Houston-based artists Pritika Rajgaria and Levy Olivia. And this project was, it existed before COVID, but for this Idea Fund rendition, they were responding to the pandemic. And so before the pandemic, they used to host culinary events and experiences, but then in response to the pandemic, they wanted to explore alternative ways to break bread with community, essentially. They prepared and packaged meals and created virtual dining experience on Zoom. And participants were able to take part of the creation of their meals by following instructions, prompts. I also like to call it a score that they provided in the packaging of the meals. And so if you scroll down here, you can get to their website and their Instagram and learn more. I'm going to show you one more example. So Bria Lauren is also in our current cohort, round 14. Gold Was Made for Her is a project that is an ode to Black Hood women and is currently being documented in Texas and Louisiana. It's a project that is a visual poem to Breonna Taylor and other Black women that lost their lives to various injustices, and she works with storytelling, photography, and interpersonal programming. And this project is actually currently on view at Lawndale Art Center through January 15th. So if you want to kind of see what one of the Idea Fund projects are in person, it's currently on view. And again, you can scroll down and see her website at the bottom to learn more. Okay, I will go back to the PowerPoint. Give me 1 second. Okay, so I've changed my mind and I've decided to go to the application instead. So for round 15 specifically, we will be offering 12 grants of $15,000 to individual artists or collectives in, again, the greater Houston area. These grants will support innovative, experimental, public-facing visual arts projects that expand our understanding of how art exists in the world, addressing community needs, or exemplifies new ways of working in, for, and within community. So if you go to our website, theideafund.org, the application or the kind of application entry point is the first thing that you will see. And so then when you hit apply, it will then take you to Submittable. Submittable is a free platform to submit your applications. And the good thing about Submittable is that you can save your application as you're working on it. And so you do not need to do it all in one sitting if you need to revisit it later. And so when you open Submittable, the application or round 15 information is presented to you again. Let's get into the meat of it. Okay, so the first part tends to be pretty self-explanatory. It is your name or your group name, your email, or if you are in a group, the lead artist's email, and then similar to the phone number, your phone number, or if you're in a group, the lead artist's phone number. And then what county do you live in? If you are in a group and, well, if you are in a group, you should put where the lead artist county is. Let's see. Have you been awarded the Idea Fund grant before? Again, this does not affect your eligibility for the grant. This is just information that we are interested in for internal purposes. How did you learn about the Idea Fund grant? Again, we're just curious about this information. Okay, and then we get into demographics. Again, collecting data for the purposes of this grant, internal purposes. You can select, I prefer not to answer. That is totally a valid option for this section. And then your art practice and discipline, we just kind of want to know like where you're coming from, what you have experience in. And then we get into the bios. So if you are a collective or a group, and if you have history working together already, you can have a collective bio. If you don't have history working together, you can see here the maximum word count for the bio is 500. So you can kind of decide amongst yourselves to split up that word count for individual bios, however you see fit. And then, of course, if you are an individual artist, this is where your bio will go. And kind of the same situation for the resume or CV as well. You can see here, it says you can attach up to 5 files. So again, if you worked within a collective or a group and you have experience working together before, you can submit a collective resume or CV. If you haven't worked together before, this is your first time kind of collaborating, then each of you can take up a file slot and submit individual resumes or CVs. And if you are an individual, this is where you put your resume or CV. link to your website. If you haven't worked as a collective before and you may not have a website, then put the lead artist's website in this slot. And if you have worked together before, and if you do have a website, put in the group's website. Project title, project summary. Project summary, think of it as your elevator pitch. So it's 150 words or less. It should be super short and sweet. Yeah, okay, and then we get into the longer project description. This is where you like really reel it in. You tell us, you know, why are you doing this project? Why is this project important to you? And you can even speak about like some logistics of the project in this area if you choose to do so. Really get into the meat of the above project summary. What is the goal of the project? This is where you can speak about what you're trying to do / accomplish with this work, or what outcome you are hoping for. This is basically the why of the whole project, right? And then how does this project relate to contemporary art? This section is really for the jurors to understand how you're thinking about the project within the larger world of contemporary art. So here you can connect your project with things such as like inspirations or influences that you have, or people or works that you think your work is in conversation with. You know, so it's kind of taking that microscope and widening what we're looking at outside of your project. Okay, and then we get into the budget, which I do have another file to share for the budget, so I'm going to stop sharing for a second again. I'm sorry, before that, I jumped the gun a little bit. Before that, so your budget can be an Excel spreadsheet, a PDF, a Word doc, and I did want to show you specifically, we do have a link to a sample budget that we have created. That is the file that I'm going to get into in a second. This template is not something that we are requiring for you to use. If you have another method or another layout that works better for you, that's wonderful. We just try to help out as much as we can, provide a template. So I will get into that now. Okay, so when you download that template and you open that file, on your end, it will be completely blank. Just for the purposes of this presentation and to share an example, I went ahead and plugged in some numbers. So you see on the template, one of the first categories are artist fees. Sorry about that. So artist fees, we do recommend, not recommend, please pay yourself. I don't think that's a recommendation. You should be paying yourself. Typically, artist payments are, let's see, 20 to 30% of the total budget. And so for this budget, I put in 2,100. And then say, for example, you are traveling for this project I just plugged in $1,000 for travel, $1,000 for ground transportation because we are traveling, right? So when we get there, are we paying for rideshare services, buses? Are we renting a bike? You know, those kinds of things, right? And then this sheet kind of does all of the math for you once you plug in the numbers that are needed. I'm sorry. So say for instance, you know, if I did change this to 900, then these numbers automatically change, right? Okay. And so then for my project, I need equipment, but I already have equipment, or I have a friend that's letting me borrow equipment. In that case, that would be considered an in-kind, and think of in-kind as a donation, essentially. But when the jurors are looking at your project and they see you're trying to do a film project and you don't list out in your budget where this equipment is coming from, that will then be a question for them, right? And so then that's where this in-kind section comes in handy. You say, I have the equipment, I know that I need to use it, this is where it's coming from, and that cost would more or less be about $1,000 is what I put for this template. And so for my project, I also need to rent out the venue, and I am contracting services. So, you know, I need to hire someone to help me build out my installation for this film that I'm trying to produce. And then again, we get into in-kind donations. Say I have a relationship with a local printing shop and they are donating flyers and postcards to my project. And so for this imaginary project of mine, I put in $250 for each as in-kind. And I will be paying for website and media for $100. And so then when you fill up this black and gray section here, the red line will populate with your total expenses. And so my grand total with the money that I'm spending and the in-kind donations comes out to $7,000, right? So I like to think of this top section as showing the money that I need to complete the project. And then we get into the bottom green section, which is showing where the money that I need is coming from. And so we have the Idea Fund grant. I'm planning on getting this grant. It will be $5,000. Now you can get, of course, other grants from other places. It is important to list that in your budget, again, so that the jurors know, you know, well, there's an extra 500 for example, if there's an extra 500 missing from the money that I need and you're not showing it in where I'm getting the money, people might be like, where is this mystery 500, right? And so I put, I'm getting another grant for $500. I also think it's important to note that if you are in the process of applying to grants and maybe you don't know that you've received that extra grant yet, it's still important to put it in your budget just so we can kind of see like the framework that you're working off of. Okay, and then the template also calculates your total in-kind services as well. And then when we get to the bottom here, you see that this green line is now 7,000. This is an important detail to look out for in your budget. You want to make sure that the money that you are projected to need matches where the money is coming from, the money that you have within your pool. So make sure the red matches the green. Okay. Now I will get back to the application. Okay. So once you've figured out your budget, you upload the file. And then we have this section here that is titled Project Budget. This is where you have a moment to provide some context to your budget, right? Because I just gave you all of these rules and things to look out for, but we also understand everyone's budget does not look the same. And so if there's something in your budget that you think may raise questions to the jurors or could seem abnormal, this is a chance for you to kind of lay it out and explain why it is what it is, just so that the jurors don't walk away asking questions. Okay. And so now for your work samples, just as the bios and the resumes, if you are a collective and you've worked together before, your work samples should reflect that collective work. If you have not worked together before, you can split up the work sample spaces individually as you see fit as a group. This is also a space where you can show like drafts or mock-ups of your project. And so if you are an artist or a group of artists and you're proposing a project that is different from work that you have done in the past, and you're like, what work samples should I submit? I don't have anything like this. You can submit drafts or mock-ups of what you are submitting. You can also submit a Vimeo link. I always tell people, please make sure that this Vimeo link is not password protected. I recommend sending it to a couple of friends before submitting the application to make sure that it is functioning correctly. Your video can be up to 3 minutes long is what we are asking for. If you want to show more than one video, we recommend that you kind of create a video reel or sample reel that has snippets of each video that you are wanting to show. So kind of compile that information within 3 minutes. And if you do that, it is helpful to have text or like titles within the video to indicate now this clip is different from the last video that you saw. And then your work sample description. This is kind of similar to the project budget explanation, to where this is where you provide context to the work samples that you submitted above. So you can describe, why the projects were made, what the projects are, of course. If you are submitting a project that is unlike any of your previous work, you can use this area to inform the jurors of how your work samples relate to this new project that you are proposing to the idea fund. Okay. And so that is the end of the application. Again, you can save as a draft here at the bottom. If you need to revisit something, you don't need to do it all in one sitting. And then you click to submit. As a reminder, applications are due November 15th at 11:59 p.m. That is a hard deadline. And so please do not wait until last minute to submit your applications, because we find that the way that energies work, when you wait last minute, something is just bound to happen, and we don't want that happening to you. So please try to submit as much as in advance as possible. And so let me get back to the presentation. Give me 1 second. Okay. Now we're going to do kind of an overview. Okay, application tips. So keep it simple. We are not looking for applicants to use like art world jargon, kind of the best way that I can explain it. Speak about your work for what it is. We are interested in learning about your work. And so be descriptive. What are the core ideas of inquiry behind your thoughts? Tell us what your vision is. What do you hope to achieve? Something important to mention within that is how will it physically be presented? It's sometimes we find in applications that people are talking about their work and it sounds really great, but then we get down to like the physical aspects of it and we're like, but what's happening with the work, right? Where is it going? How is it functioning? Who is interacting with it? Those details are really important to mention. For your budget, remember to be detailed and realistic. Share your money research. So if you decided to pay $500 for materials, definitely share that information. And again, please pay yourself. Tips for your work samples. Share samples that support your work, including your project plans. This will help the jurors understand your practice interests and the proposed project feasibility. Again, work samples can include mock-up, past work, new work, or videos. We encourage you to share the descriptions and information about the project in the additional upload work description PDF. Okay, now we're going to get into some frequently asked questions. What types of projects are eligible for funding? So, I'm sorry, did I? No, okay. So key considerations for applications will include artistic and creative strengths of the proposed project, overall vision of the applicant, capacity of the applicant to realize the project. And so if you, this is a totally extreme example, but if you are like, I am trying to get a celebrity in a video, but I only have a budget for that portion of $2,000, that may not be super realistic, right? So think about the capacity or what capacity you are presenting to the jurors and make sure that it's clear that the project can and will get done. Accessibility of the resulting project to the public as either an in-person or online event, project, or program. Again, the community-based aspect of your project is very important to us. So make sure that you are involving community in some aspect, and commitment to serving local community. And keep in mind that your project must adhere to COVID-19 safety precautions and restrictions. What are some past projects or ideas that have been funded? So we have funded a wide range of projects. Here on the slide, you will see a list of projects that we funded in the past, or types of projects that we funded in the past. So works of individual artists, collectives or temporary association of artists, a project of a temporary or permanent artist-run space, curatorial project, an exhibition that has a strong public component, publications of creative writing, including printed matter, online publications, a public event, performance, or intervention, a screening, lecture, or workshop series, site-specific installations, web-based projects, audio, video, and photo projects, online virtual engagements and events, social practice-based projects, and community events. Again, this list is not the end-all be-all. I think possibilities are endless, and we are interested to see what you come up with if it is outside of this list. So what if we have already received the IDEA fund? Can we reapply? Yes, you can reapply. All past IDEA fund project grants and the emergency relief grant recipients are eligible to apply for round 15. Round 15 funded proposals will take innovative approaches to urgent questions of our moment and create lasting impact on its intended communities. What is the review process and selection criteria? So all of our proposals are evaluated based on the following criteria, which is artistic and creative strength of the project, overall vision, the capacity of the applicants to realize the project, accessibility of the resulting project to the public, and the project's demonstration of community support and commitment to serving a local community. So traditionally, our jurors are comprised of 3 people. Those 3 people do not include the IDEA fund partners. So we recruit a regranting partner from another city, a past recipient with a local perspective, and a panelist with a national or regional perspective of the field. So how many project proposals can I submit? You can submit as many as you'd like. Groups or collectives can submit 1, and each member can submit multiple individual projects. This is kind of an example, right? But please note that the likelihood that a project with the same lead artist of a group / collective and an individual project to be funded is slim. So if you are within a group and you submit a project and it gets accepted, but you also submitted an individual project, it is most likely unlikely that both of those projects would be selected. But again, the decision is ultimately up to the panel of jurors. Do we offer application reviews before submitting? We absolutely do. We offer application review sessions. If you are working on your application and would like to have some direct feedback from a TIF administration partner, you can sign up for virtual review sessions through the Calendly link that's on the presentation. I also believe that the link should be in the chat as well. And again, just to reiterate, TIF partners are not directly involved in the application jury process. Our advice is offered as general recommendations and best practices based on regranting feedback and past application experiences. I think now we can open up the floor for questions. I have not been keeping an eye on the chat.
It looks like Sydney, oh, sorry, that there are 2 questions in the chat. One from Veronica that's asking, are photo projects funded? If so, how do we frame it as being participatory? And do we share where the we imagine the exhibition would be? Yeah.
Okay, so yes, we have funded photo projects before. I think the next question was, how do we frame it to be participatory? I mean, I think that is really up to the artist and kind of what you want to do with your project. I'm kind of trying to think of examples in the past. I mean, I guess Bria Lauren is a photography project. And her participatory aspect of that project, for example, is really working within her community in Houston and in Louisiana with the photos, but then that community is also really ingrained within the public programming that she is doing when presenting these photos. Yeah, but I think ultimately that decision is really up to the artist and how you want to present your work. And there was a third question.
Yeah, I'll just piggyback onto you, Sydney, and say that, it can be about the community, involving the community, could have that the public presentation could be the community component. There's different ways that you could make a photography project being participatory. It just really depends on the idea that you have.
Thank you for that, Mary. Do we share where the works are being exhibited? I believe that was the third question. Yes, if you have an ideal place, again, it does not need to be tied to an institution. But if you have an ideal physical location that you want to present your work in, definitely share that in your proposal. I should mention that your work cannot be presented in project row houses or a picture show or diverse works because that would be a conflict of interest. But there are many, many other places that you can exhibit your work. I believe that the possibilities are endless. So please share that information if you have an idea. And I guess with this, I also want to mention that within the Idea Fund, we're really open to your project shifting and changing within time. And so if you put down that you want to exhibit your work in a specific location, but then, as the year goes on, I think we've learned from the past 2 years that anything can really happen within a year. We respond and we shift. And so your project will most likely change, and that's totally okay.
So there's another presentation question of, for video projects, does it have to be in a theater setting, or would a virtual premiere be okay? And we've done a lot of virtual programs. And so we're totally open to virtual programming now. As long as you have some way to do outreach and ways to engage community in that presentation, being online or in person.
Yes, absolutely. I think the location where your project is presented, again, we're looking for like innovative work, and we're really excited about experimental works as well. And so you do not need to be like tied to a theater. Virtual would be great. For example, if you wanted to show a video along the Buffalo Bayou, like that would be great as well. But just be open to what space actually means for your project.
So when are the funds available for recipients to use for their projects? So we go ahead, Ashley.
I can answer that one. So once the grants are awarded, which is usually either late December before the holidays or in January, when we get back from the holidays, we usually have our awards reception. And once we notify the applicants, and then we have an awards reception where we invite applicants to give a presentation publicly about what projects they are going to be working on in the next year. It's at that point that we distribute funds. In the past, when we've had tiered leveled funding, the checks were distributed in 3 different payments. With the $5,000 award, they are distributed in 2 payments. So you would get your first payment up front, and then there would be a payment that would be given to applicants when they complete their project, which is usually around December of that year, so 2022. too. However, projects can extend beyond the 2022, and we usually negotiate and work with the artist. As Sydney has said, we understand that projects change and things happen. So usually you work with us and we kind of figure that out.
Thank you, Ashley.
There's a question in the Q&A. Is this grant primarily for groups and established artists? I'll go ahead and answer that one and say no. It can be for groups, collaboratives, individuals, really anyone can apply for it. You can be emerging, mid-career, established, doesn't matter. We've had high school students do this. We've had established artists do it. It's really, we're just looking for innovative, cool, new ideas.
Sydney, it looks like there's a question that's asking about the last day the grant work must be completed. I think I answered that one. Usually our grant cycle is December of the year that it's awarded, knowing that there could be projects that needed to be pushed forward. In the past, we also have projects that have been paid out before that December date. Usually, again, that's just a conversation with the TIF partners and the projects. I will say that we have funded projects that have been, like when we had the Latino Art Now conference that was in April, or Photo Fest, which is an annual spring event where artists have gotten funding for supplemental projects and have used their idea fund to realize the creation of their work for these photo fests or the conferences. Spring is a really quick turnaround. We have funded artists that are looking for them, and have completed the projects and cleared them out before then. So it really just depends on the artist, what's going on, how you're planning to use the funds. And again, that can be negotiated with the TIF partners.
So here's a question of our letters of support to help the application encouraged. It's not a part of the application. If you want to submit a letter of support, then you're welcome to do that. But it won't hurt your application, but it's not required. Do we have any more questions?
I think there was a question in the chat that was asking if the links from today's presentation would be shared with the attendees. All of our links we've used are on our website. If you go to theideafund.org, you can pull them up online, but I have written down your name so I can send you the links and send out the links if needed. We also are recording this info session, and so it will be streamed live on our YouTube channel, along with our past 3 info sessions, which all cover the same information, but it's the Q&A that is always really enriching to look at, because it's your questions that really allow a deeper insight into the application process.
Yeah, and as you're working on your application, revisiting these materials, if you find that you have additional questions after the fact, please feel free to reach out, email us, contact us. We can still answer questions past this info session.
Well, I guess if there are not any other questions at this time, thank you so much, everybody, for your time on a beautiful Saturday afternoon. Thank you, Sydney, for going over the application, and Mary and Lisa for answering questions and fielding the chat. Yes, you can email us. Our contact information is on the screen. sign up for a review session if you are interested in having your application reviewed. And all the best of luck to all of y'all as y'all apply for your projects. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.